I unchained the alien woman, and days later she came back with a gift. Elias Rourke had learned long ago that abandoned places were never truly empty. They only waited. His small salvage ship drifted near the broken alien station, its lights flickering like a dying star. The structure was old, older than most human colonies, and its metal skin was torn open in many places. Battle scars. Whatever had happened here was violent and fast, the kind of fight where no one stayed to clean up the dead. Elias moved through a narrow airlock and into the station's main corridor. His boots echoed softly. He kept his breathing slow and steady. He was not a soldier, only a scavenger trying to make a living at the edge of known space. Still, he carried a simple pulse pistol, more for comfort than confidence. The corridor walls were covered with strange markings, symbols carved deep into the metal. Elias did not understand them, but he could feel that they meant something important. The station smelled dry and cold, like old dust trapped in space for years. He passed broken doors and empty chambers. Some rooms showed signs of hurried evacuation, tools left behind, crates torn open. Others showed darker signs, black marks from energy weapons and scorched walls. Elias tried not to imagine what had happened to those who once lived here. Then he heard it. A sound very faint, almost lost in the hum of dying power systems. It was not mechanical. It was not an alarm, it was breathing. Elias stopped, his heart beat faster. He followed the sound to a sealed chamber at the end of a side corridor. The door was thick and reinforced, far stronger than the others he had seen. A small control panel still glowed with weak power. He hesitated. Every rule of survival told him to turn back. Unknown life forms were dangerous. Prisoners in alien stations were dangerous for a reason, but the breathing continued, slow and uneven. It sounded tired, weak. Elias activated the door controls. The door slid open with a low hiss. Inside the chamber, light panels flickered on, revealing a single figure in the center of the room. An alien woman, tall and slender, knelt on the floor. Her skin was a deep blue-gray, marked with faint silver lines that glowed softly. Her eyes were large and dark, filled with pain and fear. She was bound. Thick energy chains wrapped around her wrists, ankles, and torso, holding her in place. The chains hummed with power, digging into her skin. Small burns marked where she had struggled against them. Elias froze. The alien woman looked up at him. Her eyes widened and her breathing quickened. She pulled weakly against the chains, then stopped, as if realizing resistance was useless. They stared at each other in silence. Elias slowly raised his empty hand to show he was not attacking. His voice came out quiet and unsure. "I'm not here to hurt you." She did not respond, but her eyes followed every movement he made. There was intelligence there, awareness, and fear. Elias glanced at the control panel near the chains. Symbols covered it, but one thing was clear. The device was a restraint system, powerful and advanced. Whoever had built it did not want her to escape. He activated his scanner and aimed it at the panel. The data scrolling across his screen made his stomach tight. Species classification, Sakath Dominion, threat rating, extreme, notes known for mental manipulation, strategic deception, and long-term conquest. Elias swallowed. He had heard stories. Everyone in deep space had. The Sakath were spoken of in warning tones, a species that did not rush into war but slowly controlled entire systems through influence and fear. Humans avoided them whenever possible, and here one was, chained and helpless. Elias felt sweat on his palms. He could leave. No one would blame him. In fact, most people would call him smart. He could seal the door, take whatever salvage he had already found, and fly away. The alien woman seemed to sense his thoughts. She lowered her head slightly, her shoulders sagging. Her breathing became shallow, uneven. She looked tired, not dangerous, not powerful, just broken. Elias remembered something his mother had once told him back when Earth was still just a distant dream. Who you are shows most when no one is watching. No one was watching now. He stepped closer to the control panel. The alien woman tensed, her eyes locking onto his hands. She said something in her own language, her voice soft and rough at the same time. Elias could not understand the words, but the meaning was clear enough. Please. Elias exhaled slowly. I don't know what you did, he said, speaking more to himself than to her, and I don't know what you might do if I let you go. He paused, then continued. But I know what I am if I leave you like this. He began working on the control panel. It was difficult. The system was far beyond human technology, layered with security measures meant to stop tampering. Elias bypassed one circuit, then another. His hands shook not from fear of failure but from fear of success. Warning lights flashed. The station's power surged. The chains tightened briefly and the alien woman cried out in pain. Elias flinched. "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "I'm trying." Finally, with a sharp sound like breaking glass, the energy chains deactivated. One by one, they faded into nothing. The alien woman collapsed forward, catching herself with trembling hands. She stayed on her knees, breathing hard, as if afraid the chains might return. Elias stepped back to give her space. Several seconds passed, then she slowly stood. She was taller than Elias by nearly a head, though she seemed weak, unsteady on her feet. Up close, he could see how thin she was, how the glow in her markings flickered like a dying flame. She looked at her wrists, then at Elias. For a long moment, neither moved. Then she did something unexpected. She lowered her head. It was not a bow exactly, but a gesture of respect, of acknowledgement. Her eyes met his again, and Elias felt a strange weight in his chest. Gratitude, clear and unmistakable. Before he could speak, alarms screamed through the station. Red lights flashed along the corridor outside. Elias cursed under his breath. "Of course!" The alien woman straightened, alert now despite her weakness. She looked toward the door, then back at Elias. She spoke again, faster this time, her tone urgent. "I don't understand you," Elias said, "but I think we both need to leave." He turned and ran. She followed, moving faster than he expected. They raced through the corridor as the station shook around them. Sections of the ceiling collapsed behind them. Whatever systems were left were failing fast. They reached the airlock just as the station began to tear itself apart. Elias sealed the inner door and activated the launch sequence for his ship. The airlock cycled, and moments later they were inside the cargo bay of his vessel. The alien woman looked around, taking in her surroundings. She placed a hand against the wall, steadying herself. Elias moved toward the cockpit, then stopped. He turned back to her. "I can take you somewhere safe," he said, "or at least far away from here." She watched him carefully, then she shook her head. She pointed to herself, then gestured outward toward the stars. Understanding dawned slowly. "You need to go," Elias said quietly. She stepped closer. For a moment, Elias wondered if this was the moment everything went wrong. Instead, she reached out and gently touched his arm. Her skin was warm. She held his gaze, her expression serious, almost solemn. Then she stepped back, turned, and moved toward the cargo bay exit. The ship's outer hatch opened briefly. She leapt into the darkness of space, her body surrounded by a faint glow as some hidden technology activated. Elias sealed the hatch and stared at the empty space where she had been. The station behind him finally collapsed, breaking apart in silent explosions. Elias set a course away from the wreckage and leaned back in his chair. His heart was still racing. He had freed a being the galaxy feared. He had no idea what would happen next. But somewhere deep inside, he felt certain of one thing. Whatever came, he would face it knowing he had made the right choice. Elias did not sleep well after leaving the ruined station behind. His ship moved quietly through open space, engines set to low power. Stars drifted past the cockpit window like slow thoughts he could not stop. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the alien woman's face and the way she had looked at him before leaving. Not angry, not cold, something deeper and harder to name. He told himself he had done the right thing. Still, doubt followed him like a shadow. On the third day after the rescue, Elias docked at a small human trading post built into a hollowed asteroid. It was a lonely place, the kind where people asked few questions and listened too closely when others talked. He sold his salvage, collected enough credits to survive another month, and tried to stay invisible. That did not last. While eating alone in a narrow food hall, Elias overheard two pilots talking at the next table. Their voices were low, tense. "3 ships just gone," one said. "No wreckage, no signals." The other shook his head. "Same thing near the border last week." "Patrol Command says it's interference. I don't believe that." Elias froze with his cup halfway to his mouth. "Interference from who?" the first pilot asked. The second leaned closer. "Does it matter? When ships vanish, something is hunting." Elias paid quickly and left. Back on his ship, he pulled up public reports. At first, there was nothing official. Then he dug deeper into private networks and rumor channels. Patterns began to form: missing ships, failed sensors, whole routes quietly abandoned. All of it pointed toward the same region of space, the Sakath border. Elias sat back in his chair, his chest tight. He remembered the scanner's warning: extreme threat. Mental manipulation, strategic deception. He wondered if Mercy had made him a fool. Far away beyond human space, the alien woman traveled alone. Her name was Sakithra, though among humans it would sound too sharp, too heavy. She moved through space wrapped in a thin field of energy, her body weak but alive. Each jump drained her further, yet she did not stop. Her thoughts were loud. She remembered the chains, the pain, the long days when hope had faded into a dull ache. She had expected death or worse. Humans, she had been taught, were brutal creatures, fast to violence, slow to trust. Dangerous in ways no strategy could fully predict. Yet when the human had stood before her, he had chosen something else. That choice disturbed everything she believed. In Sakith history, mercy was a tool, never a gift. Kindness was weakness. Freedom was earned through dominance, and yet she had been freed. When she finally reached a hidden Sakith outpost, she collapsed upon arrival. Drones rushed to her side, lifting her broken body. Voices filled the chamber, sharp and demanding. She told them everything. The capture, the abandonment, the human, the outpost leaders listened in silence. When she finished, the chamber filled with low, angry murmurs. "A human freed you?" one demanded. "Impossible." "He was alone," another said. "This could be deception." Sakithra lifted her head, her eyes burning with certainty. "He expected nothing. He gained nothing. That is not deception." Silence followed. The leaders withdrew to deliberate. Sakithra was taken to recover, her body healed by advanced systems, but her mind did not rest. She accessed restricted networks, military plans, long-term projections. What she found made her blood run cold. The invasion had already begun, not with fleets but with preparation. Silent strikes, testing defenses, removing eyes and ears before the real blow. Humanity was marked for erasure, not because of what it was, but because of what it could become. Sakithra understood then why she had been left to rot in chains. She had questioned the plan, suggested observation instead of destruction. That doubt had made her disposable. When she was strong enough to stand, she made a choice that would have been unthinkable days before. She would repay her debt. Back in human space, Elias prepared to leave the trading post. His instincts screamed at him to run farther, to disappear into deep space. Still, something held him back, a quiet sense of waiting. That night his ship systems chimed softly. Incoming signal. Elias frowned. The channel was encrypted, old human military code that few civilians even remembered. His fingers hovered over the console. "This is Elias Rourke," he said carefully. "Identify yourself." The reply came after a brief pause. The voice was unfamiliar, smooth but strained. The translation system worked hard to shape the sounds into human language. "Elias Rourke, you freed me." His heart slammed against his ribs. He swallowed. "You're alive." "Yes, where are you?" "Near, close enough." Elia's ship sensors flared, a small craft decloaked just beyond docking range. It was alien, sleek and dark, its surface shifting like liquid metal. Weapons were visible but not powered. A request appeared on his screen, peaceful contact. Elias hesitated only a moment before accepting. The alien craft moved slowly, deliberately, and docked with his ship. The airlock cycled. When the door opened, Sakithra stood there. She looked stronger now, her posture steady, the silver markings along her skin bright and clear. Still, her eyes carried the weight of someone who had seen too much. Elias stood frozen. "You came back," he said. "Yes," she replied, "with purpose." She stepped inside, her gaze moving across the small cargo bay. "You risked yourself for me. I could not ignore that." Elias gestured toward the cockpit. "Then let's talk somewhere less exposed." Once seated, they faced each other in silence. The hum of the ship filled the space between them. "You are afraid," Sakithra said. Elias laughed softly. "That obvious?" "Yes, you believe your choice may have harmed your people." He did not deny it. She leaned forward. "Your choice delayed harm. It gave me time." She extended a slender device and placed it on the console. "This is why I returned." Elias frowned as data flooded his screens. Star maps, fleet movements, weapon signatures, plans layered within plans. His blood ran cold. "This is war," he whispered. "Soon," she corrected. "If nothing changes," Elias looked at her, "why give this to us?" "Because one human showed mercy without reason," she said simply. "Because that act proves your species is not what my people believe." He shook his head. "They won't trust you. I know. They might lock you up." "Or worse." "I know," she met his gaze. "Still, I must try." Elias leaned back, overwhelmed. He thought of the pilots, the missing ships, the quiet fear spreading through space. "What do you want from me?" he asked. Sakithra's voice softened. to speak for me. You saw me when I was powerless. You chose to see a person, not a threat. Elias closed his eyes for a moment, then he nodded. Okay, he said, let's save my people. Outside the viewport, stars burned silently, unaware that the fate of worlds was shifting, not because of fleets or weapons, but because one small act of humanity had reached farther than anyone could have imagined. Elias had never been inside a military command station before. The structure floated above a blue-white gas giant, massive and silent, surrounded by patrol ships and defense platforms. As his small salvage ship was pulled into the docking bay, Elias felt smaller than he ever had in his life. Sakethra stood beside him, calm on the outside, but her hands were folded tightly behind her back. She knew what awaited her. Humans feared her kind, and fear often spoke louder than reason. The moment they stepped out of the ship, armed soldiers surrounded them. Weapons were raised, not firing, but ready. Hands where we can see them, a human officer ordered. Elias raised his hands slowly. Sakethra did the same, copying his movements without protest. They were escorted through long white corridors into a wide chamber filled with screens and raised platforms. Human officers, scientists, and political representatives watched from behind barriers of glass and light. Some faces showed anger. Others showed curiosity. A few showed fear. A senior commander stepped forward. His hair was gray, his expression hard. You brought a Saketh into a human defense station, he said to Elias. Do you have any idea what you've done? Yes, Elias replied. His voice shook, but he did not look away. I brought someone who wants to prevent a war. Low murmurs spread through the room. Sakethra was led to the center of the chamber. Energy restraints snapped into place around her wrists and ankles, though they were lighter than the chains she had worn before. Elias flinched at the sound. She stays restrained, the commander said, for everyone's safety. Sakethra did not resist. She only looked at Elias once briefly, as if to say she understood. Data began to stream across the large central display. The device Sakethra had brought was connected to human systems. Maps expanded. Symbols appeared. Red zones spread across human space. Silence fell. One of the scientists spoke first. These fleet movements, they're real. We've seen pieces of this, but not the full pattern. A military officer leaned forward. This is a preparation phase. They're cutting our lines, blinding us. The commander turned his attention to Sakethra. Why should we trust this? Why should we trust you? Sakethra lifted her head. You should not trust me, she said calmly. You should verify the data. You will find it accurate. And when we do, the commander asked, then you will understand that your time is short. Anger flashed across several faces. You expect us to believe you came here out of kindness, one representative snapped. Your species does not act without benefit. Sakethra's voice did not rise. That is true. This act benefits me. The room stirred. It benefits me because I choose to be someone different than what my people made me, she continued. And because one human showed me that such a choice is possible. All eyes turned to Elias. He cleared his throat. I found her chained in an abandoned station, left to die. I could have walked away. I didn't. If she wanted us destroyed, she could have disappeared. Instead, she came back alone. The commander studied him for a long moment. You're asking us to risk everything on trust, he said. Elias shook his head. No, I'm asking you to prepare. The room fell quiet again as analysts worked. Minutes passed, then hours. Confirmation after confirmation appeared. Sakethra had told the truth. Human command moved fast. Orders were sent. Fleets were recalled. Defenses were reinforced. Old human habits emerged, not of panic, but of stubborn planning. Where Saketh's strategy relied on careful control, humans relied on adaptation and refusal to break. Sakethra watched from her restraint field as humans argued loudly, disagreed openly, and still somehow moved forward together. It was chaotic, inefficient, powerful. She stays in custody, the commander finally said, but under protection, no harm comes to her. Elias released a breath he did not know he was holding. Days passed. Human space changed its rhythm. Trade routes shifted. Civilian ships were quietly warned away from danger zones. New sensor nets were deployed, using Sakethra's data and human creativity combined. Sakethra was moved to a secure observation chamber. Elias was allowed to visit. You don't have to stay involved, she told him during one visit. You have already done more than enough. Elias shook his head. If this goes bad, I want to know I didn't walk away. She studied him. You humans are difficult to understand. he smiled faintly. We've been told. As more data came in, a truth became clear. The Sakath had underestimated humanity. Not in strength, but in spirit. Humans did not rush to meet force with force. They turned space itself into a trap, false retreats, silent ambushes, civilian-looking stations that hid powerful defenses. The first major Sakath strike came sooner than expected. A human border system went dark. Then it came back online. Human sensors had recorded everything. The Sakath fleet emerged from jump space expecting weak resistance. Instead, they found empty space and quiet stars. Then human signals flared to life all around them. The battle did not last long. Sakath ships were disabled, not destroyed. Human commanders wanted prisoners, proof, leverage. When the reports reached command, the room was silent. We held, someone whispered. Elias watched the displays with wide eyes. We actually held. Sakathra closed her eyes briefly. That should not have been possible, she said softly. The Sakath leadership reacted with fury. New orders were issued. Larger fleets were prepared. The invasion would continue, but now with caution. Sakathra felt something she had never felt before. Fear, not for herself, but for her people. They will not stop, she told Elias. But now they are unsure. Uncertainty is new to them. Good, Elias said. Maybe it's time they learned how that feels. Human Command made a bold decision. Instead of hiding Sakathra, they would use her voice. A message was prepared, not a threat, not a demand, a truth. Sakathra stood before a recording system, human and alien technology blending around her. Elias stood nearby, just out of frame. To the leaders of the Sakath Dominion, she said steadily, you taught me that control is survival, that mercy is weakness. You were wrong. She revealed the failed strike, the captured ships, the human preparations. You seek to erase humanity because you fear what they may become, she continued. You should fear what you are becoming instead. The message was sent across known channels. Then they waited. The response did not come immediately. Days stretched on. Tension filled every station and ship. Finally, Sakath long-range sensors showed massive fleet movements slowing, then stopping. Human analysts stared at the data in disbelief. They're pulling back, one said. Not retreating, reconsidering. Elias felt a strange mix of relief and dread. Is that good? Sakathra answered quietly. It means they are listening. That alone changes everything. She turned to Elias. Whatever happens next, your species will not be erased quietly. He met her gaze. Neither will yours. Outside the command station, stars continued to burn, ancient and distant. But between them, something new had begun. Not peace, not war, but a fragile space shaped by trust, fear, and one choice that had grown far larger than the man who made it. The waiting was harder than the fighting. Human fleets stayed on alert across dozens of systems, engines warm, crews tense. Every sensor ping felt like the start of something terrible, yet days passed, then weeks, and the Sakath fleets did not advance. They watched. Sakathra stood often at the wide observation window of the command station, her hands resting lightly on the glass. Beyond it, human ships moved in careful patterns, never still, never predictable. She could feel the strain in the station, the quiet determination that filled every corridor. This was not how her people prepared for war. The Sakath believed in certainty, in control, in crushing a threat so completely that resistance never had time to form. Humans did something else. They adapted. Elias spent most of his time moving between rooms he never imagined he would enter. Strategy meetings, engineering labs, communication hubs. No one treated him like a hero. He was simply there, asked questions, listened to answers, and spoke when he thought it mattered. That, he realized, was another human strength. Titles mattered less than ideas. One day, Sakath returned from the window and spoke quietly. They are divided. Elias looked up from a console. The Sakath, yes, some wish to continue, others fear what comes next. She paused. Fear is new for them. Good, Elias said again, though his voice was softer this time. Human Command decided to push, but not with weapons. A second message was prepared, this time not just from Sakathra, but from humanity itself. It showed restraint. Captured Sakath ships were returned, their crews unharmed. Damaged vessels were repaired and sent back across the border. Medical data was shared, correcting flaws in Sakath life support systems humans had discovered during boarding operations. The message was clear: we can fight, we can win, but we choose something else. The response, when it came, shook the galaxy. A Sakath delegation requested talks, not surrender, Not alliance, dialogue. The meeting took place in neutral space aboard an ancient station older than both species. Human security was tight but calm. Sakath guards moved with rigid discipline, their expressions unreadable. Elias was there only as an observer, standing quietly at the back. Sakathra stood at the center between two worlds that no longer fit neatly into enemy lines. The Sakath leader spoke first. "You have disrupted centuries of certainty," they said. "One human act began this." Their gaze shifted briefly to Elias. Sakathra did not deny it. "Yes, you have shown strength without conquest," the leader continued. "This is confusing." Elias almost smiled. Humans spoke next, not with threats but with history of Earth. Of wars that nearly destroyed them, of lessons learned too late, then carried forward at great cost. "We are dangerous," the human representative said plainly. "But not because we seek domination, because when pushed we do not stop, we endure and we remember." The Sakath delegation listened. For the first time they truly listened. Talks lasted for days, there were arguments, accusations, old wounds dragged into the light. More than once it nearly fell apart. But it did not. When the agreement was finally signed, it was simple. No invasion, no silent preparation for war, open observation, shared space. Time, not peace, but a future. When Elias returned to the command station, he felt lighter than he had in months. The fear had not vanished, but it had changed shape. Sakathra met him in the corridor. "It is done," she said. "For now," Elias replied. She nodded. "For now is sometimes enough." Later, as ships began to stand down and alarms faded into routine signals, Elias prepared to leave. His salvage ship felt small again, but familiar, honest. Sakathra walked with him to the docking bay. "You could stay," she said. "Humans would listen to you." Elias shook his head. "They don't need me anymore. They never really did." She studied him. "You underestimate your role," he smiled. "I'm okay with that." At the airlock, she stopped. "There is one more thing," she said. From a small device, she projected a star map. A single system glowed softly. "My people consider this place cursed," she explained. "An ancient failure. Dangerous technology left behind and forgotten." She looked at him. "I think humans would see it differently." Elias raised an eyebrow. "As a challenge? As an opportunity," he laughed quietly. "You know us too well." She closed the projection. "That is my gift." Elias hesitated. "You already gave us everything." "No," Sakathra said gently. "I gave you warning. This is trust." They stood in silence for a moment. Then Sakathra did something that would have been unthinkable weeks ago. She placed her hand over her chest and inclined her head, not as a subject to a superior, but as an equal. Elias returned the gesture, awkward but sincere. As his ship undocked and drifted away, Elias looked back once. Sakathra stood watching, a solitary figure framed by metal and stars. He wondered what stories her people would tell about humans now, not monsters, not conquerors, something far more unsettling. Time passed. The galaxy did not fall apart. It did not suddenly become peaceful either, but borders stabilized. Trade resumed. Human and Sakath ships learned to share space without reaching for weapons. Elias returned to salvage work, though he found fewer abandoned places now. He did not mind. Sometimes he carried messages. Sometimes he guided explorers toward places once thought unreachable. Sometimes he simply traveled. On quiet nights, he thought back to a ruined station and a single choice made in silence. No one built statues for that choice. No history books praised it, but the stars remembered. And somewhere beyond charts and borders, the future watched humanity with new eyes, uncertain, cautious, and just a little bit afraid of what humans might become when they chose not to break their chains, but to unchain someone else instead.